Hello, everyone. Welcome to English Today Journey. I am very happy that you are here with me today. My name is Jara, and I want to say thank you for spending your time with us. If this is your first time listening, please know something very important. You are not here by accident. You are here because you want to grow. You want to improve your English. You want to become a better and stronger version of yourself. That is a beautiful goal, and you should feel proud of it. The good news is that you are not alone on this path. We are walking this journey together. Every single day, we share simple, helpful, and meaningful lessons to support you. We truly believe that when knowledge is shared with care and love, it can change lives. Even small lessons can make a big difference when you learn a little every day. That is why we are here for you. If you are ready to take a small but powerful step in your English learning, then you are in the right place. If you want to feel inspired, more confident, and more hopeful about your future, stay with us. Subscribe, listen, and grow with us. We believe in slow progress. One small step. One simple lesson. One day at a time.
Now, let me ask you something.
Why are you learning English? Maybe you want to travel and talk with people from different countries. Maybe you want to make new friends around the world. Maybe you need English for school, for work, or for a better job. Or maybe you simply love learning new things. Whatever your reason is, it is important and it matters. And because of that, you are in the perfect place today. Today, we're going to talk about something very important for all English learners, the power of daily listening practice. Listening is not only about hearing words.
It is much more than that.
Listening helps your brain understand English in a natural way. It helps you feel the rhythm of the language. It helps you understand meaning without translating every word in your head. Think about how you speak with a friend. You do not stop and think about grammar rules. You just listen and understand. That is what listening practice can do for you. When you listen every day, even for a short time, your English slowly becomes easier. You start to understand faster. You feel more confident. And one day you notice that speaking feels more natural too. So here is my simple advice for you. Take a moment for yourself. Grab a cup of tea, coffee, or a glass of water.
Sit down.
Relax your body and your mind. Do not feel stressed. Do not worry about mistakes. Just listen and enjoy the learning process. Together, we are going to explore English step by step. And together, we will grow stronger, calmer, and more confident in this beautiful journey of learning English. Today, we're going to learn how to make English listening not only useful, but also enjoyable, simple, and a natural part of your daily life. Before we continue, let me ask you something important. Have you ever felt that learning a new language is like climbing a very tall mountain? At the beginning, everything feels exciting. You feel motivated and full of energy. You learn new words every day. You study grammar rules. You feel proud because you can see your progress clearly. But after some time, something changes. Your progress becomes slower. You feel like you are walking, but not moving forward. The excitement becomes smaller, and learning starts to feel difficult and heavy. Many English learners experience this moment. And for most people, this problem begins when they try to understand spoken English. For many students, reading is not too bad. Writing can be a little difficult, but with practice, it is possible. Speaking is also possible when you prepare and practice sentences. But listening feels different. Listening often feels like the hardest skill of all. Maybe you have experienced this yourself. You listen to a native speaker, and they speak very fast. Or you watch a movie or a video without subtitles, and suddenly you feel lost. It feels like all the English you studied disappears from your mind. The words come too quickly. They mix together and turn into strange sounds. You try to understand, but nothing makes sense. Has this ever happened to you? If your answer is yes, please don't worry.
You are not weak.
You are not bad at English. And you are definitely not alone. This experience is very common. Let me tell you a short story. I once had a student. Let's call her Anna. Anna was a wonderful student. She was very smart and very hardworking. She always completed her grammar exercises perfectly. Her writing was clear, organized, and well-written. She could explain her ideas confidently in class. On paper, Anna looked like a perfect English student. But one day, Anna came to me looking very sad. Her shoulders were low, and her face showed disappointment. She looked tired and defeated. She said, "Teacher, I don't understand. I try to listen, but my mind becomes empty.
People speak so fast.
It feels like a storm of confusing sounds. I cannot catch the words. I cannot understand anything." When she said this, I could see her frustration clearly. She was not lazy. She was not careless. She was trying very hard, but she did not know what she was missing. Does Anna's experience sound familiar to you? Maybe you feel the same way sometimes. Maybe you listen, but nothing stays in your mind. If so, that is okay. Because what Anna was missing was not intelligence or effort. What she was missing was the right way to practice listening, a calm, simple, and daily approach that allows the brain to slowly connect with English in a natural way. The problem was not intelligence, ability, or effort. The real problem was something much simpler. Anna had not trained her ears and, more importantly, her brain to understand English as a living and real language. She had studied English as a school subject, not as something people actually use every day. You see, many learners think of English only as words in a book. They see grammar rules, exercises, tests, and homework. But English is not just rules on paper. English is alive. It lives in conversations between people. It lives in songs, movies, stories, podcasts, and daily communication. To truly understand English, your brain needs to experience it in this real and natural way. Think about how children learn their first language. They do not start with grammar books. They do not memorize long lists of words. They do not write essays or take tests. First, they listen. They listen a lot. They listen for hours every day. They listen for months and even years before they say their first real sentences. Children listen to their parents talking. They listen to songs. They listen to stories. They listen to the world around them. At first, they do not understand anything clearly. But slowly, their brain starts to recognize sounds. Then it recognizes words. Then it understands meaning. And one day, without planning it, they start to speak naturally. This is exactly why daily listening practice is so powerful for English learners. Listening helps you learn English in a natural way, just like a child. Children do not sit down and study grammar rules. They do not try to remember word lists. Instead, they listen again and again. They listen to voices, sounds, and words every single day. For example, when a mother says the word milk while giving her child a cup, the child slowly learns that this sound means that white drink. No explanation is needed. No translation is needed. The brain connects the sound with the meaning naturally. Step by step, the child builds language without stress or fear. Of course, as adults, we usually learn in a different way. We sit in classrooms. We use books. We follow lessons and plans. This structure can be helpful. But the most important idea from how children learn is still very powerful for adults too. That idea is being surrounded by the language as much as possible. The problem is that many learners forget this. They spend hours studying vocabulary lists. They read grammar rules again and again. But they do not spend enough time listening to real English. Their eyes are trained, but their ears are not. Their brain understands English on paper, but not in real life. This is why listening feels so difficult for many people. The brain has not had enough time to get used to the sounds, speed, and rhythm of English. But the good news is this can change. With simple, daily listening practice, your brain can slowly learn to understand English naturally, calmly, and with confidence. Many learners spend a lot of time memorizing vocabulary lists. They repeat grammar drills again and again. And yes, these activities can be helpful. They are not useless, but they are not enough. Without real English input, Without listening to real voices and real conversations, progress will always feel slow and painful. Learning English without listening is like trying to learn how to swim by only reading a book. You may understand the rules. You may know how swimming works in theory, but until you jump into the water, you cannot really swim. In the same way, until you truly listen to spoken English, you cannot truly understand it. For listening practice, jumping into the water means giving yourself regular, real exposure to English. It means listening to different voices, different accents, and different topics. This is how you train your ears. This is how you train your brain to understand English naturally, without fear or stress. Now, I want to make one very important thing clear. When I say daily listening practice, I do not mean that you need to study for many hours every single day. No, not at all. Even 15 to 20 minutes of good listening practice can create a big change over time. The key word here is focused. Listening to English in the background while you cook, clean, or scroll on your phone is okay. It can help you get used to the sound of English. It can help you feel more comfortable with the rhythm of the language. But if you want real improvement, deep understanding, and strong confidence, you need something more. You need active listening. So, what does active listening mean? It means you are fully present. You are not doing many things at the same time. You try to understand the main idea of what you hear. You listen for important words and phrases. You pay attention to how sentences are formed. Sometimes you even try to guess what the speaker will say next. This is not passive hearing. This is thinking in English. When you practice listening in this active way, your progress becomes much faster. Your brain starts to work differently. English slowly stops feeling like a foreign subject. It starts to feel like a real language you can understand and use. Let me share another short story to explain this. This time, it is about a young man named Kenji. Kenji loved to travel. His biggest dream was to put on his backpack and visit many English-speaking countries. He already knew some English. He could order food. He could ask for directions. He could have very simple conversations. But Kenji wanted more. He wanted to feel relaxed and confident when speaking with strangers. He wanted to understand people in unexpected situations, like at airports, on buses, or in small conversations with locals. He knew that to reach this level, he needed better listening skills. So Kenji decided to change his learning habit. He did not study longer hours. Instead, he studied smarter. Every day, he chose a short English audio. Sometimes it was a podcast. Sometimes it was a video. Sometimes it was a simple conversation. He listened carefully. He focused. He tried to understand the message, not every single word. At first, it was difficult. But day by day, something amazing happened. His ears became sharper. His brain became calmer. English started to feel clearer. And slowly, Kenji began to feel ready for the world he dreamed of exploring. Kenji started listening to a podcast every week. At the beginning, it was very difficult for him. One day he said to me, "Teacher, I only understand one word out of 3. Sometimes even less." I smiled and told him that this feeling is completely normal. Many learners begin exactly at this point. It does not mean you are bad at English. It means you are starting real growth. Then I gave Kenji some simple advice. I said, start small. Do not try to listen to everything. Choose just 1 or 2 episodes each week. First, I told him to listen to the episode 1 time from start to finish. During this first listening, he should not stop. He should not worry about every word. He should only try to understand the general idea. What is the topic? What is the speaker talking about? Is the story happy, serious, or informative? After that, I told him to listen again. This time, he could pause the audio. He could stop and write down new words. He could look up their meaning. He could replay difficult parts again and again. I explained that repetition is very important. It is like drawing the same picture many times. At first, your lines are messy, but after repeating, your hand remembers the shapes. In the same way, Your brain needs repeated listening to remember English sounds and meanings. Each time you listen again, English feels a little more familiar. The sounds become clearer. The speed feels slower. The words start to connect. What once felt confusing slowly becomes understandable. And the best part is this: you do not need hours every day. Just 15 to 20 minutes of this kind of focused, active listening can change your English in powerful ways. Now, I want to repeat something very important. It is not enough to only have English playing quietly in the background while you cook, clean, or look at your phone. Yes, this passive listening can help a little. It can help your ears get used to the sound and rhythm of English. But if you truly want strong improvement, you need to go one step further. You need active listening. Active listening means you give your full attention. You listen carefully and try to understand the main message. You notice important words and repeated phrases. You pay attention to how sentences are spoken. Sometimes, you even try to guess what the speaker will say next. When you do this, listening becomes more than hearing sounds. It becomes thinking in English. This kind of listening trains your brain deeply. It helps English move from your head to your heart. Slowly, English stops feeling like a difficult subject. It starts to feel like a real language you can understand and use naturally. Another powerful technique you can try is called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and then repeating it out loud, trying to copy the speaker's pronunciation and rhythm. At first, shadowing might feel strange or even funny. You might feel shy or unsure. But this method is one of the most effective ways to improve both listening and speaking at the same time. When you listen, repeat, and focus every day, even for a short time, something amazing happens. Your confidence grows. Your understanding becomes faster. And one day you realize that English no longer feels like noise. It feels like meaning. And that is when real progress begins. Shadowing is one of the best ways to improve both listening and speaking at the same time. It helps your ears, your brain, and your mouth work together smoothly in English. Kenji decided to practice shadowing almost every day. At the beginning, it was not easy. He needed to read the transcript while listening. He paused often. He repeated sentences many times. Sometimes he felt slow and unsure. But he did not give up. After a few weeks of calm, focused practice, something amazing happened. Kenji noticed that he did not need the transcript as much anymore. The sounds that once felt fast and confusing slowly became clear sentences. Before, English felt like noise. Now it started to feel like meaning. His brain was finally connecting the sounds with real understanding. One special day, Kenji sent me a message. I could feel his excitement even before I finished reading it. He wrote, "Teacher, today I was sitting in a coffee shop. Two people near me were speaking English, and for the first time I understood them." He said he did not understand every single word, but he understood the conversation. He understood what they were talking about, and that made him very happy. For Kenji, this moment was life-changing. It was the first time he truly felt that his effort was working. Later, he told me something very important. He said, "I didn't catch every word, but I understood the main idea." The two people were talking about a new movie. And the best part was this. They made a joke and Kenji understood it. He laughed at the right moment, just like a natural part of the conversation. He told me, "It was a small moment, but for the first time, I felt like I was really inside the conversation, not watching from far away." That feeling stayed with him. That small moment gave him strong confidence. It showed him that English was no longer a wall. It was becoming a bridge. This feeling of connection is the true goal of listening practice. Not perfection. Not understanding every single word, but understanding enough to feel included. Enough to feel confident. Enough to feel that you belong in the English-speaking world. Many learners believe they must understand everything to succeed, but that is not true. Even native speakers do not understand every word all the time. What matters most is understanding the message, the feeling, and the idea behind the words. Listening practice helps you build this skill slowly and naturally. Kenji's story is important because it shows something very real. Progress does not come suddenly. It comes quietly. One day, you listen and feel lost. Another day, you listen and understand just a little more. And then one day, without warning, you realize you understand a real conversation in real life. That is why daily listening practice is so powerful. It builds confidence step by step. It teaches your brain to stay calm. It helps English feel familiar instead of frightening. And when that happens, learning becomes lighter and more enjoyable. So remember this, you do not need to be perfect. You only need to be patient and consistent. Listen a little every day. Listen with focus. Listen with curiosity. Over time, English will stop feeling like noise. It will start to feel like a voice you understand. And that is when everything begins to change. Kenji dreamed of putting on his backpack and traveling through many English-speaking countries. He already knew some English. He could order food, buy tickets, and have very simple conversations. But inside his heart, he wanted more. He wanted to feel relaxed and confident when speaking with strangers. He wanted to understand people in natural, unplanned situations, not only prepared ones. Because of this goal, Kenji decided to start listening to our podcast. At the beginning, it was very hard for him. He spoke to me honestly and said, "Teacher, I only understand maybe 1 word out of 3. Sometimes even less." I told him that this feeling is completely normal. Many learners feel the same way at the start. I told him not to worry and not to feel bad. This stage is not failure. It is simply the beginning. Then I gave Kenji some simple advice. I said, start small. Do not try to do too much. I told him to choose only 1 or 2 podcast episodes each week. First, he should listen to the episode 1 time without stopping. During this first listening, he should not try to understand every word. He should only focus on the general idea. What is the topic? What is the speaker talking about? After that, I told him to listen again. This time, he could pause often. He could write down new words. He could look them up. He could listen to difficult parts more than once. I explained that repetition is very important. I asked him to imagine drawing a picture. When you trace the same picture again and again, your hand slowly remembers every line and curve. Listening works the same way. Your brain needs repeated exposure to the same sounds and sentences until they feel familiar, clear, and natural. Kenji's big breakthrough came when he started using the written transcripts we provide. But he did not use them like a dictionary. He used them as a learning tool. His method was simple but very powerful. First, he listened to a short part of the podcast. Then he read the transcript carefully to see what he missed or misunderstood. After that, he listened to the same part again. This helped his brain connect the sounds with the words. Then Kenji added one more strong technique to his practice. This technique is called shadowing. Maybe you are wondering what shadowing means. Shadowing is when you listen to a short piece of audio and then repeat it out loud immediately. You try to copy the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, speed, and even the rise and fall of their voice. At first, shadowing felt strange to Kenji. He felt a little uncomfortable hearing his own voice. Sometimes he felt silly. But he continued. Day by day, his mouth became more comfortable. His ears became sharper. His brain started to work faster. English slowly stopped feeling heavy and confusing. After some weeks, Kenji noticed a big change. He did not need the transcript as much. The sounds were clearer. Sentences made sense. English was no longer just noise. It had meaning. And one day, something beautiful happened. He was sitting in a coffee shop and heard people speaking English nearby. For the first time, he understood them. Not every word, but the main idea. He even understood a joke and laughed naturally. That small moment changed everything for him. It showed him that daily, focused listening truly works. And the same can happen for you. With patience, simple practice, and a little listening every day, English can slowly become clear, comfortable, and real in your life. Shadowing means copying the speaker as closely as possible. You listen to the audio and repeat the words right after the speaker. You try to copy the pronunciation, the rhythm, the speed, and even the rise and fall of the voice. It is like being a mirror for the speaker's words. At the beginning, shadowing may feel strange. You might feel shy. You might think your voice sounds funny. But this feeling is normal, and it will pass. The truth is that shadowing is one of the best methods to improve listening and speaking at the same time. It trains three important things together: your ears, your brain, and your mouth. Your ears learn to recognize sounds clearly. Your brain learns to understand faster. And your mouth learns how English really sounds when it is spoken naturally. All three start working together smoothly. Kenji decided to practice shadowing almost every day. In the beginning, he still needed the transcript a lot. He read while listening. He stopped often. He repeated the same sentences many times. Progress felt slow, but he stayed patient and continued his daily practice. After a few weeks of focused listening and shadowing, something amazing happened. Kenji noticed that he did not need the transcript as much anymore. The sounds that once felt like fast, confusing noise were now becoming clear sentences. His brain was starting to connect the dots. English was no longer just sound. It had meaning. One very special day, Kenji sent me a message. I could feel his excitement through his words. He wrote, "Teacher, today I was sitting in a coffee shop. Two people near me were speaking in English, and for the first time, I understood them." He said he did not catch every single word, but he understood the conversation. He told me how happy he felt in that moment. For Kenji, this experience was life-changing. It was the first time he truly realized that his hard work was paying off. All the listening, repeating, and patience were finally showing results in real life. Later, Kenji shared something very important with me. He admitted that he did not understand every word in that coffee shop conversation. But this did not matter. What mattered was that he understood the main idea. The two people were talking about a new movie. And the best part was this: Kenji even understood a joke they made. He laughed at the right moment, naturally, without thinking. In his message, he wrote, "It was such a small thing, but for the first time, I felt like I was really inside the conversation, not watching from far away." It was amazing. That small moment changed everything for him. Why was this moment so powerful? Because that feeling of connection is exactly what listening practice is about. It is not about understanding every word perfectly. It is about feeling included. It is about feeling confident enough to follow a conversation. It is about feeling like English is no longer something distant, but something you are part of. This is what daily listening practice can give you. Step by step, it brings you closer to the English-speaking world. One day, just like Kenji, you will realize that English around you is no longer noise. It is meaning. And that is when real confidence begins. Learning English is not just about passing a test or getting a good grade. It is about something much bigger. It is about opening new doors, creating exciting experiences, and finding opportunities that go far beyond the classroom. English gives you the ability to connect with people, explore new cultures, travel, work internationally, and enjoy content in its original language. That is why focused listening practice is so important. It helps you reach that bigger goal, not just memorize words or grammar rules. Now, let's ask the big question. How can you make focused, active listening a simple and natural part of your everyday life? The answer is by breaking it down into small, practical steps. Step 1. Choose topics you truly enjoy. This is the most important step. If you listen to something boring, your mind will wander. You will lose focus, and your practice will be less effective. But when you listen to something that excites you, your brain becomes active. You want to understand because you are curious, and learning feels more natural and enjoyable. Think about your real interests. Do you love new technology? Then find podcasts or videos about tech. Do you enjoy cooking? Listen to cooking shows or food-related podcasts in English. Do you like scary or exciting true crime stories? There are many English podcasts about crime, mystery, and detectives. The key is to pick subjects that make you want to pay attention. Curiosity motivates the brain to learn faster. Step 2. Start simple, then gradually increase difficulty. Beginners should start with materials made especially for learners. For example, this podcast speaks at a clear, steady pace, uses interesting topics, and avoids too many difficult or unusual words. When you feel comfortable, you can slowly move on to content made for native speakers. This could include news reports, documentaries, interviews, TV shows, or YouTube videos on topics you enjoy. The trick is to increase difficulty step by step. If you jump straight into material that is too hard, you may feel lost, frustrated, or discouraged. But if you gradually challenge yourself, your confidence and understanding will grow naturally. Step 3. Repeat and review. Listening once is not enough. Your brain needs repeated exposure to the same sounds, phrases, and sentences. Replay difficult parts, write down new words, and see how they are used. This repetition trains your ear, your mind, and your memory. Over time, sounds that once seemed strange or confusing will become clear, natural, and easy to understand. Step 4. Mix active and passive listening. Passive listening is letting English play in the background while you do chores or commute. It helps your brain get used to English rhythm and sounds. Active listening is giving full attention, understanding the main ideas, noticing key words, and even predicting what comes next. Both types are helpful, but active listening brings real improvement faster. Shadowing, repeating after the speaker, takes active listening even further by training your speaking at the same time. Finally, make listening a daily habit, even for just 15 to 20 minutes. Small steps every day build big results over time. Like Kenji, you will start to notice that English is no longer just words or noise. It will start to feel familiar, natural, and meaningful. You'll connect with the language, understand conversations, and feel confident in real-life situations. By choosing topics you love, starting simple, repeating, practicing actively, and listening every day, focused English listening becomes not just a study habit, but a natural and enjoyable part of your life. And that is the key to real growth in English, step by step, day by day, curiosity and focus guiding the way. Step 3 is called the 3-step listening method. This is a simple way to practice English listening in a focused, active way. Let's imagine you have chosen one short podcast episode or a short video in English. You can follow these 3 steps to make listening effective and manageable. Step 1. Listen for the main idea. Play the audio or video from start to finish. Don't use subtitles or look at written text. Most importantly, do not worry about understanding every single word. Your goal here is to catch the big picture, the general idea of what is happening. Ask yourself questions like, what is the main topic?
Who is speaking?
How do they feel? Are they happy, sad, excited, or serious? What is the overall message? Think of it like looking at a painting. First, you step back and notice the large shapes and colors. You do not focus on tiny details yet. Those will come later. For example, imagine you are listening to a casual conversation about someone's holiday. On the first listen, you might catch, they went to the beach. They enjoyed the local food. The weather was sometimes rainy. That is enough for step 1.
You do not need the smaller details yet.
You are just building a broad outline in your mind, a frame where all the small details will fit later. When listening for the main idea, remember, you do not need to know every detail. You do not need the name of the restaurant or the exact kind of food. What matters most is understanding the general feeling and main activities being described. This first step trains your brain to focus on meaning instead of getting lost in individual words. Now, let's practice together. I will tell you a short story. Your job is to listen carefully just one time and try to identify the main idea, the most important message. Here is the story. Last weekend, my friend Emily decided to try baking sourdough bread for the very first time. She carefully followed the recipe, measured every ingredient, and mixed the dough slowly. While the bread was rising, she felt excited but also nervous because she had never baked this kind of bread before. When the bread came out of the oven, it was golden brown. Emily felt proud and happy. She shared the bread with her family, and everyone enjoyed it. If you were listening for the main idea, here's what you might notice. Emily tried baking sourdough bread for the first time. She felt nervous but excited. The bread turned out well, and she shared it with her family. You do not need to remember the exact steps or every small detail of the recipe. Just focus on the key points and the main feeling. That is enough for the first step. This simple first step builds a strong foundation for real understanding. Once your brain can catch the main ideas easily, it is ready for the next two steps, focusing on details and then reviewing with transcripts or shadowing. Following this method consistently makes listening practice clear, manageable, and enjoyable, turning English from a confusing stream of words into something meaningful you can actually understand. Emily wanted to try something new, baking sourdough bread. She spent a long time learning. She watched videos, read recipes, and tried to understand every step. She wanted to do everything correctly. When the day finally came to bake, she carefully followed the instructions and put her bread in the oven. She waited, excited and nervous. But when she took it out, the bread was not what she hoped for. The loaf was flat, heavy, and hard, almost like a rock. At first, Emily felt disappointed. She had worked so hard, and the result was not what she imagined. But soon, she started to laugh. The bread looked funny, and that made her smile. Instead of giving up, Emily decided she would try again next weekend. She was determined. She wanted to keep practicing until she could bake bread successfully. This story teaches an important lesson. It is not about the exact number of hours Emily spent studying or the scientific reasons why the bread didn't rise. The main idea is simple. Emily tried something new. Her first attempt didn't work, but she didn't quit. She decided to keep trying. Understanding the main idea is like looking at the big picture. It helps you see what is really important in a story without getting lost in small details. Once you know the main idea, you can focus on the details. After understanding the story, it is helpful to go back and pay attention to the small parts, the words and phrases. This is how you learn more about the language. You can read or listen again, slowly, and pause whenever you want. Repeat sections as many times as you need. Try to notice words or phrases that are useful and interesting. For example, the phrase "try again next weekend" is something you can use in your own sentences. Here's a tip for learning new words. If you find a word you don't know, try to guess what it means from the words around it. Often, the context gives you strong hints. If guessing doesn't help, then look it up in a dictionary. It is also a good idea to write down important words or expressions. You can keep them in a small notebook or on your phone. But don't write everything. Only keep what is really useful. This helps you remember and practice words that will help you the most. The story of Emily and her bread is not just about baking. It is about trying, failing, and trying again. It shows that making mistakes is part of learning. When you try something new, it may not work the first time. That's okay. What matters is that you keep going. Step by step, with patience and practice, you can improve. Emily's story reminds us that determination and a good attitude are just as important as skill. Every mistake is a chance to learn, and every new attempt brings you closer to success. Remember, learning something new takes time. The first try is rarely perfect, but with attention, practice, and persistence, you can achieve your goals. Notice the main idea, enjoy the details, learn new words, and always be ready to try again. Just like Emily, anyone can turn mistakes into progress. The key is to keep going, stay curious, and have fun while learning. Step 3 is called shadowing. This is a very useful technique for learning English. Shadowing means you listen to a short part of someone speaking and then immediately repeat it out loud. You try to copy everything, the words, the pronunciation, the speed, and even the way the speaker's voice goes up and down. At first, shadowing can feel strange or even a little silly. That is normal. Everyone feels this way at the beginning. But with practice, shadowing becomes one of the best ways to improve both listening and speaking at the same time. When you shadow, your ears, brain, and mouth learn to work together. You start to understand English more easily and sound more natural when you speak. The more you do it, the faster your listening and speaking improve. Shadowing is powerful because it helps you connect the way you hear English with the way you speak it. It trains your brain and mouth together, not separately. Now, let's go back to Emily's story about baking sourdough bread. This time, we will listen again, but also pay attention to important words and phrases. You can even try a little shadowing as you go. Repeat after the speaker and try to copy how the words sound. Here's the story again. Last weekend, my friend Emily decided to try baking sourdough bread for the first time. She spent hours watching videos and reading recipes. She wanted to do everything correctly, but the first loaf came out flat and very dense, almost like a rock. Emily felt disappointed at first, but she also found it funny. She decided to try again next weekend. She hoped the next bread would be lighter and fluffier. She was determined to master it. While listening, notice some key phrases. Words like sourdough bread, hours watching videos, flat and very dense, disappointed, but also quite amused, lighter, fluffier, and determined to master it are all very useful. These phrases make the story interesting and full of detail. They also show contrast. Emily's first bread was heavy and dense, but she wanted it to be light and fluffy. Learning words and phrases like this helps you tell stories more clearly and makes your English sound more natural. Shadowing is also a good way to practice these expressions. When you repeat them out loud, your brain remembers the sounds and patterns better. Over time, you start to use these phrases in your own speaking. You also begin to notice how sentences are put together in English and how emotions are expressed through words. For example, disappointed, but also quite amused shows two feelings at the same time. Understanding these small details makes your listening and speaking much stronger. Remember, the key to shadowing is patience and practice. Start with short sentences and repeat them slowly. Then, as you get more comfortable, try longer sentences. Try to copy the rhythm and intonation of the speaker. Don't worry if it feels strange. Every time you practice, your English improves a little more. Combining shadowing with listening to stories like Emily's bread story is a great way to learn naturally. You learn words, phrases, emotions, and rhythm all at once. Shadowing, combined with paying attention to details, helps you feel confident with English. It's fun, interactive, and very effective. Just like Emily kept trying to bake bread, you keep practicing shadowing, and you will notice progress over time. The more you practice, the easier it becomes, and the more natural your English sounds. Step by step, practice by practice, you will get better. Step 3 of the 3-step listening method is listen for connection and reflection. This is the final step, and it is very important, even though many people forget it. In this step, your goal is not just to understand the words or details. Instead, try to connect what you hear to your own life, experiences, and thoughts. Ask yourself questions like, does this story remind me of something I have done? Can I explain the main points in my own words? If I were talking to the speaker, what advice would I give? Can I guess what might happen next? Thinking this way turns listening from a passive activity into an active one. You are not just hearing words, you are using them, thinking about them, and making them part of your own experience. This is where real learning happens. Let's go back to Emily's story about baking sourdough bread. As you listen, try to connect it to your own experiences. Maybe you think, I remember when I tried to make pancakes for the first time, and they all burned. I felt frustrated, too, but I learned a lot from that mistake. Or maybe you wonder, I wonder what recipe Emily used. Maybe she could try a different type of flour. That might help her make lighter bread. When you make these personal connections, the story becomes more meaningful. It is no longer just a text to read or listen to. It becomes a real example that teaches you something about life and language. Connecting stories to your own thoughts also helps you remember words and phrases better. For example, remembering flat and dense or lighter and fluffier is easier when you think about your own cooking experiences. The story becomes personal, and the language becomes practical. You start to see how English can be used to describe real life, not just for school or exercises. Now, let's look at another real-life example. This is the story of a man named David. David moved from Germany to Ireland for a new job. His English was already good enough for work. Most of his job involved technical discussions and formal meetings. But when David arrived in Ireland, he realized that real-life conversations were different. People spoke faster, used slang, and sometimes made jokes. Even though his English was technically correct, he had trouble understanding casual conversations with colleagues. David decided to practice listening every day. He watched short videos, listened to podcasts, and talked with people as much as he could. He tried the same three-step method. First, he focused on the main idea, then he noticed important details, and finally, he connected what he heard to his own life. He also used shadowing, repeating sentences aloud to copy rhythm and pronunciation. At first, it was challenging, but with daily practice, David noticed improvement. Conversations became easier. He could follow jokes and understand slang. He even started speaking more naturally and confidently. David's story shows how powerful consistent listening practice can be. Learning a language is not just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It is about connecting the language to real life, using it actively, and practicing regularly. Just like Emily practiced baking, or like you practice listening, improvement happens step by step. Every mistake, every question, and every connection makes learning stronger. The three-step listening method, understanding the main idea, noticing details, and connecting to your own experiences, turns listening into a tool for real communication. It is not passive. It is active, personal, and practical. Shadowing, reflection, and repeated practice make English feel natural, like something you can use every day. David's English was strong enough for his job. At work, he could understand every meeting, answer questions clearly, and take part in technical discussions without problems. But outside of work, things were different. When it came to casual conversations with coworkers or everyday social situations, David often felt lost. After work, his Irish colleagues would relax and chat in the pub. The conversations were fast, full of jokes, slang, and expressions he had never seen in textbooks. He once said with a shy smile, "I understood everything in the meeting, but at the pub, it was like they were speaking a totally different language." This is a common experience for many English learners. Knowing grammar rules and vocabulary is not enough. Real-life English is different. People speak quickly, shorten words, mix in cultural references, and use colorful sayings that are hard to translate. David didn't give up. Instead of avoiding these situations, he made a plan to improve his listening. He decided to train his ear every day. He started listening to Irish radio programs and podcasts, especially about music, history, and culture. At first, it was very hard. For the first few weeks, he understood very little. Sometimes he felt frustrated and almost ready to quit. But he made a promise to himself. "I will listen for at least 30 minutes every evening, no matter what." He kept that promise every day. David also used a very smart technique called guessing from context. Instead of stopping every time he heard a new word or running to the dictionary, he trained himself to listen carefully to the words around it. By paying attention to context, he could often figure out the meaning. This made his listening smoother and faster. It also helped him understand conversations without stopping too much, which is closer to how people actually speak. Over time, his effort paid off. The more he practiced, the easier it became to understand casual speech. He started recognizing common slang, jokes, and idioms. Even if he didn't know every word, he could still follow the meaning. Listening every day, practicing shadowing and connecting the language to his own life helped him improve steadily. He felt more confident in social situations and could enjoy conversations instead of feeling anxious. David's story shows an important lesson for English learners. Learning grammar and vocabulary is not enough. Real improvement comes from consistent, active listening and practice. Using techniques like shadowing and guessing from context and connecting what you hear to your own life makes learning more natural and practical. Every day of practice, even with small steps, adds up over time. Mistakes or missed words are part of learning, not reasons to quit. Persistence and smart practice lead to real progress. David's journey is a great example of how anyone can improve their listening skills. By listening daily, practicing actively, and reflecting on what he heard, he turned a difficult challenge into a learning opportunity. Just like Emily with her bread and every language learner with a new skill, progress comes from trying, practicing, and not giving up. David also practiced guessing the meaning of words from context. Instead of stopping to check a dictionary every time he heard something new, he paid attention to the other words, the speaker's tone of voice, and the situation. He tried to make smart guesses about what words meant. For example, one day he heard someone say they were absolutely wrecked after a long day. David didn't know the word wrecked, but he noticed the phrase long day and the tired tone of voice. From this, he guessed that wrecked meant very tired or exhausted. And he was right. This skill of guessing from context is very important. In real conversations, you don't have time to pause and look up every word. You need to keep listening and still understand the main idea. David practiced this every day for 6 months. At first, he could only follow the general topics at the pub. But over time, something amazing happened. He began to understand jokes, local slang, and the playful rhythm of Irish English. Even better, he started using some of these expressions naturally without thinking. One evening, David came to me with a huge smile. He said, "Someone said the crack was mighty today." And I not only understood the words, I understood exactly what they meant. They were talking about how much fun we had together. A year ago, I would have just stared in confusion, but now I was laughing along with everyone else. This shows the true power of steady listening. Learning a language is not just about words or grammar. It is also about understanding culture, humor, and social connection. Language is a bridge to people, relationships, and real life. You may wonder, how can I make listening a daily habit? How can I keep practicing every day, not as a boring duty, but as something enjoyable? The secret is to make listening part of your normal routine. You don't need to set aside large blocks of time. Instead, use small, natural moments in your day. Listen while walking, cooking, commuting, or even doing chores. Even 10 or 15 minutes at a time adds up quickly. The key is consistency. Daily listening, even in small amounts, trains your brain to recognize sounds, words, and patterns in real life. Over time, your understanding improves, your confidence grows, and you start to enjoy conversations instead of feeling lost. Like David, you can learn not just to understand English, but also to connect with people, share humor, and participate in social life. By combining steady listening, shadowing, reflection, and guessing from context, you create a strong learning habit. Every day you practice, you are building skills that go far beyond grammar and vocabulary. You are training your brain to think in English, to understand culture, and to communicate naturally. Step by step, you become more confident, fluent, and comfortable. Mrs. Higgins was tending her garden on a quiet morning. She loved to spend time with her roses, carefully planting and watering them. The air was calm, and she could hear birds singing. Suddenly, a loud voice broke the peace. "Mrs. Higgins! Mrs. Higgins!" shouted a young boy as he ran down the lane. Startled, Mrs. Higgins looked up, her hands still covered in soil. On her shoulder, Captain Squawk, her colorful parrot, flapped his wings and shouted dramatically, "All hands on deck! Enemy approaching!" Brace yourselves." The boy stopped in surprise. He had never heard such a strange warning before. But Mrs. Higgins only smiled. She was used to Captain Squawk's wild behavior. "Oh, don't mind him," she said, brushing off her apron. "That's just Captain Squawk. He thinks he's still at sea." The boy had come with an important message. One of the village baker's delivery carts had broken down in the middle of the road. Bread and cakes were stuck, and if they weren't delivered soon, they could spoil in the sun. Mrs. Higgins didn't hesitate for a moment. Even though she was elderly, she was full of energy and loved to help her neighbors. She grabbed her basket and followed the boy into the village. Of course, Captain Squawk insisted on coming too. He hopped from her shoulder to her walking stick and back again, squawking all the way. When they reached the baker's shop, the parrot stole the show. "Fresh bread, 2 shillings a loaf. Hands off the biscuits. Raise the anchor, lads, we're setting sail," he shouted. The villagers couldn't stop laughing. Even people passing by stopped to watch and help carry bread just to hear what Captain Squawk would say next. What could have been a stressful morning turned into a joyful event. Mrs. Higgins and her helpers carried baskets of bread through the village, all the while hearing the parrot's amusing announcements. Everyone felt happier because of Captain Squawk's antics. The children giggled at his dramatic calls, the adults smiled at his clever words, and the baker was grateful for the help. Even the boy who had run to Mrs. Higgins couldn't stop laughing as he joined in carrying the bread. By the time the deliveries were finished, the sun was high in the sky. Mrs. Higgins returned home, tired but happy. Her garden still needed attention, but she felt good knowing she had helped her neighbors and brought smiles to the village. Captain Squawk, still perched on her shoulder, looked proudly around as if he had saved the day at sea. That morning reminded everyone that small acts of kindness could turn ordinary moments into something special. Mrs. Higgins' willingness to help, the boy's quick thinking, and Captain Squawk's funny interruptions all came together to create a story the village would talk about for weeks. Even a simple broken cart could bring neighbors together and make a quiet day lively and fun. In the end, Mrs. Higgins smiled as she returned to her roses. The garden was peaceful again, the villagers were happy, and Captain Squawk was quietly preening his feathers, though she knew it was only a matter of time before he had something new to announce. Life in the village, she thought, was full of surprises, and sometimes a little chaos could bring the most joy. The morning had been peaceful for Mrs. Higgins, but suddenly something unusual broke the quiet. While working in her garden, she heard a high-pitched, desperate crying. It wasn't the sound of birds or wind. It was something urgent. The noise came from behind the tall, overgrown hedge at the edge of her little property. Mrs. Higgins stopped what she was doing, worry showing on her face. Carefully, she pushed through the thick leaves to see what was wrong. Then she saw it, a tiny kitten stuck in the thorny branches. The little animal was no bigger than her hand. Its fur was wet and messy, and it shivered from both fear and cold. "Oh, you poor dear," Mrs. Higgins whispered softly. Her voice was gentle and full of kindness. Slowly and patiently, she began to free the frightened kitten. It was tricky. The branches were sharp, and the kitten struggled constantly, making it difficult to lift safely. Captain Squawk, ever dramatic, could not stay quiet. Seeing the kitten, he puffed out his chest, flapped his wings, and squawked in his loudest pirate voice, "Shiver me timbers! A landlubber! Avast, ye scurvy beast!" He was trying to be brave, like a pirate scaring off an enemy. But his loud voice only frightened the kitten more. It cried louder, squirmed harder, and tangled itself further in the branches. Mrs. Higgins sighed, looking at her parrot with a mixture of love and mild exasperation. "Captain Squawk, sometimes your theatrics make things harder," she said kindly. But she didn't scold him. She understood that his dramatic nature was part of his charm. Instead, she focused on the kitten, gently lifting it branch by branch until it was free. The kitten was small and trembling, but safe in her hands. Mrs. Higgins wrapped it in her apron to warm it up. She smiled down at the tiny creature. There, little one. You're safe now. Captain Squawk watched, quieter this time, as if he understood that being gentle was better than shouting. After a moment, the kitten began to calm down, its tiny purrs growing louder. Mrs. Higgins stroked its fur and gave it a little spot of milk. Captain Squawk, seeing the kitten relaxed, flapped his wings once and squawked softly, almost like a whisper. Mission accomplished for now. That morning reminded Mrs. Higgins that life could be unpredictable. One moment was peaceful gardening, and the next brought urgent cries and little emergencies. Yet, kindness, patience, and a little courage could turn a frightening situation into a happy ending. The kitten was safe, the garden was peaceful again, and even Captain Squawk seemed satisfied, though she knew it wouldn't be long before he found something new to dramatize. The villagers, if they had seen the scene, would have laughed and cheered. Mrs. Higgins' patience, her gentle care, and the parrot's wild antics all combined to make a small, tense situation into a story worth telling. And for Mrs. Higgins, it was another day full of adventure, joy, and a reminder that even the smallest creatures sometimes need the biggest hearts. By the time the sun rose higher, the kitten was happily exploring the garden. Captain Squawk was perched proudly on her shoulder, and Mrs. Higgins returned to her roses, smiling. Even in quiet moments, the garden was never truly calm. Life in her little village was full of surprises, laughter, and small acts of kindness that made every day special. Mrs. Higgins sighed with mild annoyance at Captain Squawk. "Captain, please," she said softly. "You are not helping at all." Finally, after careful effort, she managed to free the tiny kitten from the thorny branches. She held it gently against her chest. The little creature trembled so much that Mrs. Higgins could feel every tiny shake. It was cold, weak, and clearly very hungry. Without wasting a moment, she carried the kitten inside her cozy cottage. She wrapped it snugly in a warm, soft blanket and placed it near the fireplace. Then she poured a small dish of milk for it to drink. Captain Squawk followed closely, hopping down from her shoulder and tilting his head curiously as he watched the kitten. This time, his voice was softer. "Ahoy there, little mate. Lost your ship, have you?" he squawked gently. To Mrs. Higgins' surprise, the kitten paused in its shaking and looked up at the bright green parrot with wide, curious eyes. It was as if, despite being frightened, Pip could sense something kind in Captain Squawk's voice. Over the next few days, Mrs. Higgins took very good care of the kitten. She fed it, kept it warm, and made sure it had a safe place to sleep. She decided to name the little creature Pip because of the tiny squeaky sounds it always made. Pip slowly grew stronger. He began exploring the cottage, walking carefully on his tiny paws and playing with bits of yarn. He even chased shadows across the floor. He was still nervous whenever Captain Squawk shouted in his usual loud pirate voice, but deep down, Pip seemed to understand that the parrot meant no harm. In fact, Captain Squawk grew very fond of the kitten. He often left little pieces of his dried fruit near Pip's resting place. Sometimes, in his dramatic pirate voice, he would call out, "Eat up, me hearty." Mrs. Higgins couldn't help but smile every time she watched this unusual friendship grow. The big, colorful parrot and the tiny, timid kitten seemed to enjoy each other's company, despite their very different personalities. One sunny afternoon, while Pip napped in a warm spot near the fire and Captain Squawk preened his feathers on the windowsill, Mrs. Higgins felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She realized that rescuing Pip had brought more joy and laughter into her cottage than she could have imagined. The once frantic little kitten now slept peacefully, feeling safe and loved. Life in Mrs. Higgins' cottage had become lively and cheerful. There was the soft purring of Pip, the amusing squawks of Captain Squawk, and the warm, comforting hum of the fireplace. Every day brought small surprises, gentle challenges, and plenty of laughter. Mrs. Higgins thought about how wonderful it was to care for another living creature. She smiled at the thought that even small acts of kindness, rescuing a tiny kitten, could fill her home with happiness and friendship. Even the villagers noticed the change. Mrs. Higgins' cottage seemed brighter somehow, full of gentle warmth and playful energy. Pip's tiny paws and curious eyes, combined with Captain Squawk's dramatic antics, made the home a place of joy, stories, and adventure. And Mrs. Higgins, sitting quietly among her roses, knew that life with her unusual friends would never be boring again. One sunny afternoon, a very important visitor came to Mrs. Higgins' cottage. It was the village mayor, Mr. Henderson. He was a tall, serious man who almost never smiled. Everyone respected him, but many thought he was a bit too strict and formal. Mr. Henderson had come to discuss the plans for the upcoming village flower show. This was one of the biggest events in the community every year, and Mrs. Higgins' beautiful roses were always the main attraction. The villagers were proud of her flowers, and the mayor wanted to make sure everything was ready. Mrs. Higgins invited him inside her cozy living room. They sat down together, and the mayor began speaking in his serious, official tone. He explained the prize categories, the rules for judging, and exactly how the flowers needed to be arranged. His voice was steady and precise, filled with importance. Meanwhile, Pip the kitten was busy thinking about his own adventure. He had grown stronger and more playful over the past few days, and he couldn't resist exploring. Seeing the mayor sitting stiffly in the large armchair, Pip decided it would be fun to climb and investigate. Quietly, carefully, and on soft little paws, Pip jumped onto the side of the chair. Step by step, he made his way up the arm, moving slowly so that Mr. Henderson, focused completely on his speech, didn't notice a thing. Pip's green eyes sparkled with mischief, and even Captain Squawk, perched calmly on his wooden stand in the corner, noticed something was about to happen. The parrot tilted his head, his sharp eyes following every move of the playful kitten. At that very moment, Mr. Henderson was speaking with his usual pride. "And I believe, Mrs. Higgins," he said, adjusting his tie with great importance, "your Crimson Glory Rose will surely win first prize again for its perfect bloom and unmatched beauty." Pip, feeling confident in his little paws, reached the top of the armchair and paused, peering curiously at the mayor. Captain Squawk gave a low, warning squawk, but it was more curious than serious. The kitten's tail twitched, and in the next instant, he pounced lightly onto the mayor's lap.